Five Nights at Freddy's is a game that you might know. In 2014, Scott Cawthon released the first FNAF game and it blew up, gathering millions of views on YouTube. However, it also birthed a huge new genre of games, Five Nights at Freddy's fan games. You almost certainly know of these games. These games take heavy inspiration from the original Five Nights at Freddy's. This can be from a gameplay, visual, or character standpoint. For example, some of the most notable games on the platform are Five Nights at Candy's and The Joy of Creation. When the original FNAF game came out, I was only about 8 years old, and of course, I had ideas of creating my own FNAF fan game. However, I never really had the skills in really anything to ever make one of these games. Whether that be coding, drawing, or the 3D modeling, I just didn't have the skills to do that. And as of right now, I still don't. However, recently I've been wanting to at least do something about one of my FNAF fan game ideas, and I did by actually writing them down. However, I wanted to see it in 3D, and I don't have 3D modeling skills. So I did the next best thing for me, and that is I built it in Minecraft. Yep, that's right. Today I'll be showing you my Five Nights at Freddy's map that I made in Minecraft, and then I'll explain some of the mechanics and some of the lore of the game. And this game's name is Viola's Pizzeria. I started out by outlining the layout of the pizzeria based on the sketches that I had done in a notebook. We'll be using this layout throughout the whole video, so you should get used to seeing it. What I did for the layout of the pizzeria was use different colors of concrete to map out the different rooms of the pizzeria. The layout of the pizzeria is this: the entrance, arcade, dining hall, stage, backstage, the bathrooms, kitchen, employee lounge, the manager's office, party rooms 1, 2, and 3, the party room storage, and finally the office. When it comes to the building itself, this is something that I wanted to do because it would get me out of my comfort zone. I mostly do exteriors, not interiors. I also never do anything remotely close to a pizzeria or a party place. I mostly do large buildings where I spend most of my time on the exterior. So if FNAF fan game being a mostly interior building is something that's going to be very new to me. I started the building by making a front wall for the outside, and I put a very basic sign with a big V on it. But after I did this, I decided to just focus on the interior for the building instead of the exterior. So I started with the entrance of the building. I made it purple for the main character of the game and decided to make multiple rooms this color for the main character of the game, like the main dining halls and hallways near the party room. I then made a little ticket booth with fences to outline the entrance to the building. I added glass windows and a little bench in case the line was getting too long. I also used these shelves and stripped wood to make this line thingy at the top of the walls that I would keep doing for most of the build. And then I also decided to do the classic checkered floor for the entrance. This is also where the first animatronic of the pizzeria can be found. The dining hall keeps the checkered floor pattern as well as the purple wall from the entrance. I also did the stage, which has been elevated from the floor for a better viewing experience. I added these stairs in the front of the stage for reasons I won't be getting into yet. I added long tables as well as booths into the room for sitting before making chairs using this shelf design for the arms. I think it turned out pretty decent. I also added the shelf line thing that I did from the entrance before adding a checkered carpet in red and purple for the two animatronics that would be found in this room. Finally, I added a prize corner that's near the entrance to the arcade. The next room that I worked on was the backstage area. I started out by making the floor polished andesite, which I would later add a little bit of regular andesite to make it a little bit more textured. I then made the walls light gray concrete before I moved on to what was actually decorating the room. I started by adding a table to the room with oak planks and spruce trapdoors. I added item frames to put tools in. I put armor stands to act as like endoskeletons. I actually added a lot of that back here. And then I finally added furnaces to the one end of the room to finish it off. I then moved on to the bathrooms, which I found out I accidentally made a little bit too small, but I just ended up rolling with it. I colored one side pink and the other side blue before adding gray concrete for the floor. I then put on a checkered pattern wall in between the two sides, which I actually ended up liking a lot. I then added the stalls and the sinks to the bathroom, and I think it turned out pretty okay. The next room that I did was the arcade. I made the arcade walls out of green concrete, and then I made the floor out of purple and green wool because I wanted it to be a very bright room. I added a stage to this area because this is where our fourth animatronic is found in the pizzeria. I added a ball pit because you need a ball pit, obviously. Before I added a lot of arcade machines, which I think turned out pretty alright. I added bigger arcade machines before finally doing the shelf line thing at the top of the walls to finish the room off. The next room that I did was the employee lounge. I decided to make the walls out of brown concrete for this room. I then also used oak planks from the floor to make it feel different from the pizzeria since this is an employee area. For the things inside, I went with a couch with a TV. This is also where I first started messing around with the design of my tables, opting to use this carpet and chain design. To finish the room off, I added another couch. The next room that I did was the kitchen. I started by making the walls out of gray concrete before I decided to change the shape just a little bit so I could add an area where people can order food from. I added a counter to this new area, so people can order food. I then made the kitchen area out of stone for the floor. I then added the smoker table thing with campfires underneath them because I kind of thought it looked cool before I decided to add a freezer to hold raw foods. I then added this little furnace thing in the corner of the kitchen before I decided to add another counter for other foods, like fruits and, bread, wheat, all that type of stuff. The next room that I did after the kitchen was the party storage room, which is the home of our final animatronic. I made the floor out of dark oak planks and made the walls out of gray concrete again. I then added a bunch of chests, slabs for shelves, barrels for the storage room. If I'm being honest, this was by far the easiest room to make, but I still think it ended up pretty good. Next, I decided to do the 3 party rooms. All 3 of the party rooms use magenta concrete for the walls and light gray concrete for the floors. In each of the party rooms, I added one big table in the very middle before I started messing with the wall designs. I ended up using trap doors along with the shelf line from earlier for the walls. Finally, in all 3 party rooms, I added balloons made from chains and wool. This also made me add balloons to the dining hall and a few to the entrance of the building. If I'm being honest, this is another set of rooms where I kind of made them a little bit too small in the Minecraft version. So if this ever did become a game, these rooms would be a little bit bigger. Next, I did the manager's office. For this, I also used gray concrete for the walls and oak planks for the floor. I tried to make this room a little bit more professional and less colorful than the rest of the pizzeria since it's a manager's office, obviously. So I added a desk to the center of the room, bookshelves at the side of the room, along with, actual shelves, and also a couch with more shelves and chests to make up the room. Really going for professionalism here. On to the last room now, which is the security office, which also doubles as the ticket booth for the entrance. Looking back on it, the security office might be a little bit big, but I think it worked out well for the Minecraft build. I made the walls less colorful with gray concrete, and the floor being another shade of gray concrete. I added the security desk with monitors and props around it to make it really feel like FNAF, even though it's vanilla Minecraft. I added shelves above the desk and added greenery around the room with these leaves. I also decided to add hanging banners from fences in the office, which I think turned out pretty good. I then added tables, chairs, and finally the classic shelf strip to finish off the pizzeria. Hello, this is post-build Textish. Just gonna give you a quick tour of how it ended up. Overall, I don't think it was too bad. Got our entrance here, where first animatronic would be posted up. I actually ended up really liking the arcade. I think it turned out pretty good, the arcade did at least. Second animatronic. I actually didn't like this dining hall at first,
But now that I'm looking at this from a ground perspective and not the sky, I think it turned out pretty good. Got the main two animatronics, have some stuff backstage too. I think backstage turned out good for vanilla. I got a men's and women's restroom, which I needed to make about 2 more blocks bigger for both of them, but it ended up turning out pretty good. I actually ended up really liking this little checkered design, but I don't have any mirrors in here. Kind of messed it up. The kitchen, if this was to be an actual game, you'd actually be able to see the kitchen in the camera. But I think the kitchen turned out pretty decent. Got a little bit of everything going on in here. Even got a little freezer in here. My least favorite part of this would definitely be the party rooms. I don't think they turned out too bad. Again, from an up top perspective, it looked really bad, but now that I'm looking at it from down here, I don't think it's too bad. These party rooms. I think I like the manager office. It's a lot more different from the rest of the restaurant. Another party room. An employee lounge. I think it turned out decent. I messed with tables here for the first time. I think that turned out pretty decent. And then over here, have the last party room, which is probably my favorite out of the 3. And then we have a storage room where the last animatronic's at. I think the storage room turned out good. I've done a lot of storage rooms, so I think this turned out pretty good. And then we finally have the office, which also doubles as like the ticket booth. And I think the office actually turned out pretty good. It was a lot bigger than I was expecting it to be, but I think it did turn out pretty good. This is where the player would sit if I had actual gameplay. But I think it turned out okay. It's definitely not one of my best builds, but I like it. I think it ended up pretty good.
Now that we've made the pizzeria, it's time to meet the animatronics and tell you their gameplay mechanics, while also giving you a little bit of lore. I will introduce the animatronics based off of what night they would activate in the game. I'm also going to use these little 8-bit sprites that I made for the characters that turned out pretty bad, but I had fun making them and they look really funny, so I'm going to use them. Opening on August 15th, 2020, Viola's Pizzeria gained its popularity for having advanced animatronics that could interact with the guest. The main star, Viola, gained her popularity through the late 2010s at a different location, which eventually leads to her getting the name for the new pizzeria. The rapid growth and popularity of the characters and the pizzeria leads to it getting a TV show. Located in the arcade, Gray is used for singing in the arcade and going up to talk to guests while they are playing in the arcade. He is known for his calm behavior and being fun for the kids to interact with. Gray's mechanic is that he's a simple door animatronic. Starting in the arcade, he can move to the dining room, entrance, backstage, hallway 1, party room 3, and the office door. When he gets to the office door, the player just has to shut it and he will reset. One of the main attractions of the pizzeria and one of the original cast members of the original diner in 2000, Scarlett is known for playing her guitar and singing with her sister. She is also known for having a cat named Blitz. She interacts with the guests around the dining area and is known for her fiery personality and having quite the temper. Scarlet's basic mechanic is basically Springtrap from FNAF 3, but not random. Basically, in FNAF 3, Springtrap had a chance to just ignore your camera lure. Well, in this one, as long as it's a camera beside the one she's in, Scarlet will always be lured by the camera lure. So she will leave the stage and try to make it to your ticket booth window. And if she makes it to this window, she will break it with her pigtails, resulting in an instant night over. Scarlet can also go to every camera except for the party room storage camera. The first animatronic that you will see entering the building. Forrest is there to interact with the guests while they wait to get in the pizzeria. Forrest is known to be a very outgoing animatronic. He is most known for his signature branch sticking out of his hair, which was from one of his many adventures. Forrest is in the entrance, which is right beside the player, making him visible from the ticket window. Forrest will progress through stages, getting closer and closer to the window. Eventually, he will break the window and get into the office. Unlike Scarlet, this is not an instant night over. He will progress through one more stage before rushing the player and ending the night. To stop him, the player must flash him to set him back a stage. Once Forrest breaks through the window, the player will no longer be able to send him back a stage. Instead, the flashlight only acts as a delay. The animatronic for your party. Jade is used for parties throughout the day in the 3 different party rooms. She is known for being very elegant and very soft to everyone that she meets. To put her mechanic simply, she's a find 'em on the camera animatronic. Except in this game, she has a tracker on her, so you always know what camera she's in. This makes her find 'em on the camera mechanic more about reaction time than randomness of where she spawns. Each night that she is active, she will start in a different room depending on where she was used during the daytime. In order to stop her, the player must use their camera flashlight. The star of the company, Viola is the main attraction of the pizzeria and is very famous worldwide. Like her twin Scarlet, she has her very own cat named Lily. Unlike the rest of her cast, she's able to interact with guests around the whole pizzeria and not just her performance area. It's almost like she has a personality of her own. She's known for being very energetic and off the walls with her personality. In order for me to properly explain her mechanic, I have to go into some FNAF AI a little bit. In most FNAF games, an animatronic has an AI and 20 chance to move every movement opportunity. Let's use Scarlet as an example. Say Scarlet has an opportunity to move every 5 seconds and her AEI level is 11. So that means every 5 seconds she will have an 11 in 20 chance to move. Now that you know this information, we can go over Viola's mechanic. Viola has 2 mechanics, one from 12 a.m. to 4 a.m. and the other from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. Viola will try and get to a camera that there is another animatronic at. If she's able to get to this camera, she will shorten that animatronic's movement opportunity in half. So, from our example from earlier, if Scarlet has an 11 in 20 chance to move every 5 seconds, she would now have an 11 in 20 chance to move every 2.5 seconds. The only character that this affects differently is Forrest, where if Viola gets to his camera, Forrest will no longer move backwards no matter where he's at. In order to stop this, the player can use another lore. However, this lore is completely separate from Scarlet's lore, and it only has limited uses to it. This is not an unlimited resource for you to use. After 4 a.m., she will start attacking the player directly from both the door and ticket booth window. Neither the flashlight or the door can actually stop her, and your only option is to hide in a locker to stay out of her sight. Viola is also the only animatronic that can go to every single camera. And there you have it. That is my FNAF fan game concept building in Minecraft and the mechanics for the game. Will this become an actual game? Probably not. I never even went over the in between night sections, the cutscenes, voice acting, maybe multiplayer, and that's all very ambitious. I just had this in my head for a while now, and I just wanted to talk about it for a little bit. So that's all I had for you today, and I hope you enjoyed.